Thank you all for joining our Blackmagic Collective panel on directing kids. I think a lot of people want to direct kids, but they're scared. They've heard of all the horror stories, but I only have happy stories, and I have directed probably half of my 200 something projects have had kids or starring all kids. So I love it. I'm joined by my panelists who are all in the Dances with Films Kids Pros program this year. So you can find us on June 22nd at Dances with Films if you want to see the films that we're gonna talk about. Uh, Ruchir, Lawrence, and I are in the 2:45 p.m. block, and Cynthia's in the 4:15 p.m. block. I would love each of you just to give the quick, like, two sentences, like um, the name of your film, what your film's about, and maybe how many kids are in it. And I'll start. So, if you don't know me by now, I am Jed Page. I am the executive director of Blackmagic Collective, and I'm also a filmmaker. I've directed six feature films and somehow got myself roped into directing another short after many, many years. Mostly because we wanted to do this fun 80s nostalgic space adventure, which we couldn't afford, so it became they landed on Earth and they're hiding. I have seven kids and then a few bad guy adults, and they're all different ages, and we'll get into that and how scheduling works with that as well. Rashir.
Hi, thank you, Jen, for having me on the show, and I'm truly honored to be here. So, I'm an Indian filmmaker currently based in Los Angeles, and the name of my film is Changing Room. It's a story of a 12-year-old kid who has body image issues, and currently I think I have 6 to 7 kids in my film, but I mean the lead character is played by just one kid, so the other kids have like small roles all around the film. But yeah,
Still got
that's
to deal
about
with
it.
scheduling
Yep.
and lots of kids, and that's great.
Yep.
We're gonna get into all that. I love it. Cynthia.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jen. Thank you for including me. Our film is called Straight Laced, and it is a fictionalized telling of a true story of a fentanyl overdose in a town of, kids who are pressured to succeed and achieve at all costs, get into the best colleges, do their community service, their sports, their everything, and how the kids deal with that pressure and how some of them fall through the cracks as a result of it. This film, as well as the other two that we've gotten into previous Dances with Films, has at least 20 kids. Our films are very kid heavy. Our leads are teenagers, but the age of the kids ranges from 9 to 19.
Great. And Lawrence.
All right, am I unmuted? Okay. Hi
You are.
everyone. This is so cool. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. This is really special to talk about this film. My film is called The Rocket Man, and it is about a young boy who is suspended from school and has to spend the day at his dad's office, and he discovers a terrible secret. And it's sort of told in parallel with his favorite storybook hero called the Rocket Man, who is on a one-way trip to save a planet, and they both grow up together, basically. It has two kids, but I have been working, in sort of preparing to hang out with you guys today. I ran film camps for kids for a few years, so I've made tons of short films with kids, as part of like film camps, and then I've actually directed a couple other pieces that had, 15-year-olds and things like that. And before that was another short with children as well. So I in preparing for this, I actually did work a lot with with kids, and I've actually learned a lot about directing from working with kids. I found it to be a really, really, really great exercise in learning how to just work with actors because it's basically you're trying to access your childlike play sensibilities. So I'm really excited to chat
That's a
with you
great
guys.
place to kick us off because I feel like a lot of people, they're scared because they're like, I don't even know how to talk to kids because maybe they're not parents. Really quick, that's actually a good question too. How many of us on this call are parents? Cynthia, Lawrence, and myself. and Ruchir's the non-brave, the brave non-parent. My kids are both adults now, but they grew up on set in the theaters. And I think that like maybe that helps. We'll talk to Ruchir and see how he feels differently. But kids are just tiny adults. So you know this if you're a parent. They're just tiny adults who want to have the same respect. They have shorter attention spans. That's not true because my husband, who was watching, has a very short attention span. Look for the bus to get mad. You know, it's just, I think that, but I love your idea about saying, you know, it's about finding your sense of play. And that is one of my favorite things about working with kids is it really allows us to have that big, bold energy that sometimes we lose when we're working with adults, because adults tend to be very often more jaded, more self-conscious. There's a lot of things you when you're working with adults that you kind of you have to nurture those actors a little different, whereas kids are down for anything. Kids are like, you know, we're gonna dance around the room like monkeys in this scene, and they're like, okay, they don't question it, they just have fun. I would love to hear y'all's experience with like just to kick us off with like why do you love working with kids and what makes it special? Cynthia,
So
go, well,
actually,
oh, sure, go for
oh,
it. Yeah,
sorry, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
please.
No, actually, this was my first time working with kids, and I was very scared because I had no experience. And you got that right. I have no experience talking and working with kids, so it was pretty daunting. But I think I got lucky, and what you said was 100% right. Like kids want to be treated like adults, and that's something that actually got them excited about. Like they were given a lot of responsibility. They were in charge. I would tell them I want them to go in a particular direction and they would take it in that direction. But they had authority, they had responsibility. So I was not treating them like kids. And you were also right about the attention span thing because that's something that I was not ready for because I was talking to my guy who is the lead in the film and I was giving him different cues and my instructions were initially they were like 10, 15 minutes I was talking and I realized after 5 to 7 minutes he was not at all listening to me and he was totally distracted. He was looking at what the crew is doing, what the camera is doing, where everyone's moving and I had totally lost him. So throughout the shoot, I had to like prep myself and package those instructions under 5 minutes so that he gets everything that I want him to do. But that was a really fun and exciting thing to do. Like these like the spontaneity that I got from kids, I don't think as adults we prepare a lot and what you get from kids is spontaneity and they're not afraid to do any like do go off the rails and like improvise. So that's something that was really fun to experience with this
I want to
project.
point out really quick that even with adult actors, um, there's a rule that I always say to newer directors whenever we're in any kind of directing lab, which is when you get the nod, move on. Don't give them a ton of notes. And I think that's especially important with kids. Like give them
Mhm.
one, two notes max. You get the nod that they get it, and then move on. And then do the take, and then just be prepared that you might need to do more takes. But let them have
Yep.
the play, let them have the freedom. Cynthia, I'd love to hear from your experience.
Um, I am a mother of three and a grandmother of one, almost two, any minute now. And I started working at the age of 14. And my first film set was a Woody Allen movie. And I will echo what's already been said, which is from my own experience, kids want to be treated like, it's not like an adult, just with respect. You know, you don't talk down to them, talk to them. And when I have expectations of my own kids or my students or the kids that I'm directing, I talk to them like the professionals that they are. You know, and if you set the bar, if you're talking to them where you have the confidence in them that you know they're capable and you talk to them that way, they're going to step up. Now, I will say that in all of our films, we've had kids with disabilities. The last film that we shot that was in Dances with Films last year was called Presumed Incompetent, and it was also a fictionalized telling of a true story of 15-year-old man who's got non-speaking autism as well as apraxia. And in that case, it was terribly different because the apraxia means that he doesn't have control over his muscles. And so there was no such thing as setting a blocking. There was no way he's going to do the same performance physically twice, that he'll be able to match the performance. His movements are very erratic. Literally, he'll be in a room with you and you're talking to him and he'll just get up and leave the room. I had to meet him, my crew and other actors and I all had to meet him where he was. I couldn't expect him to perform the way a neurotypical person would perform. We had to adjust around him. My shot list had to be such that I didn't have to depend upon matching in the editing. My sound guy and my DP were ready to just move with him. My actors were ready to just go with whatever he gave us. And once everybody met him where he was, and by the way, he's incredibly intelligent. What they're finding, his story is unfolding right now. And in fact, he got, after that was his first film debut, he's now an actor and a consulting producer on the documentary they're shooting right now about the telepathy tapes, which is the top podcast in the country right now. He's insanely bright. I mean, he's a savant, and they're uncovering more and more of what he's capable of doing. So I knew that he was understanding everything. It's just that his behavior was not neurotypical, so he looked like he wasn't paying attention, but I knew he was hearing and absorbing everything. So I know a very long answer, but it's quite a wide spectrum of ways that you're going to approach working with kids. And I think in the case of working with people with disabilities, then it's on us to meet them where they are and not expect them to adhere to traditional filmmaking.
I can't believe it's already halfway, our panel's already halfway over. So I'm going to move on in interest of time, but that takes us to a next point, which is working with kids and the restrictions that you have. And Lawrence, how many kids did you have in this film, did you say?
Two. We had two kids, yeah.
And what were their ages?
Oh, like I think 11. There were 11. I think one just turned 12, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Because when you're working with kids, I think that a lot of people say, don't work with kids and animals. And it's because it stresses them out to have the time constraints. So Lawrence, I'd love you to kick off that talk about how you dealt with time constraints. What were your shooting days like? Did you have a set teacher?
Yeah.
Any of that stuff that you want to
Yeah,
add?
yeah. Well, this was shot in Canada, so there were rules, and there were ACTRA, so there's you have to have a tutor. But sort of echoing what the other panelists said, it's a lot. It was trying to take advantage of the attention span and peppering work ahead of time. So it was meeting ahead of time, doing it in organic, playful ways, getting to know them, bringing in their personal lives into the script so they feel like some sort of sense of ownership. And the days were, we shot it in 5 days, and the days were short. They have to be short. But doing that work ahead of time allows you to make sure that you're taking advantage of the time that you have. And exactly echoing what you said is directing, giving one solid, really short note, seeing where it goes, doing another, doing, max 3 really. And then honestly giving them, saying like, hey, like, why don't you directly, once they get to know it, say like, hey, why don't you, I'm not going to watch the monitor. You do another take if you want to do another take. I trust you, and giving them sort of autonomy. So I found that was actually a really good way to get work done quickly with them, and giving them ownership, which is just going to get the work done quicker and better, than if
And I
it's
also
just
think
you.
to the point of it's got to be shorter days and their short attention span. And, kids, as much energy as they have, they also get tired faster. You're not getting, not that I've never done 21 takes in my life except for a oneer. But you're not getting 21 takes out of a kid actor, and you shouldn't
Mhm.
be forcing them to do that. They're going to start getting bored and losing the will to do it.
And confidence.
Yeah. And you also have kids at some point where if you're taking too long to get to them, they start to be like, can I go home? Like, so there's a lot of things that when you're scheduling kids, you've got to keep them moving.
Yeah.
So one of our kids was under 5. So what we did for her was we just had her come in. We were like, you're going to come in at this time. And I don't care what we were shooting. We stopped everything. We changed gears to shoot her stuff and get her out because you just want to you never want to have kids sitting around if you can help it. Now they do need their tutoring time by law. And if it's a weekend and if it's school days and all this stuff, you still have to have a set teacher on set.
Hmm.
They still have to work a certain hours. They still have to have a certain rest hours, and your set teacher helps you based on age. It's really important to do prep and scheduling for your kids. You cannot be like, oh, but like, with us, we definitely shot in order and we could do that because the kids were in every scene, so it didn't matter. But you're not gonna be like, I want to shoot in order or I need to shoot these 3 locations. If
Yeah.
you have kids, you're shooting around their schedules. And if you're
Yeah.
not, you're kind of being selfish anyway.
Yeah.
It is harder for the crew, it's harder for the adults, but you've got to think about your kids first, if especially if they're leads, especially if they're the bulk of the scene. Ruchir, what was your film like with your kids and scheduling?
Uh, Particularly, I had some really hard scheduling challenges because I was shooting in a clothing store, and the
I know
owners
you
were
have that,
very,
yeah.
yeah, the owners were very generous for letting me use their store for nothing. Like they didn't charge us, but we were like kind of promoting their store and their brand. And the thing is, the store cannot be closed during the day because they have business to take care of. So I was shooting nights. And shooting nights with kids is something else too, because they didn't like the kid that I was working for had never worked night shoots. So I had to keep him charged and energized throughout the night, especially coming to the point where I didn't get to shoot my film in a linear order. So I was shooting the climax on first day. First of all, I shot my films in 2 days because that's all I got because the clothing store was like, you're not getting a third day. And secondly, so I had to start with the climax of the film because the climax happens in the changing room and they can't give us the changing room on second day for some reason. So we had to shoot in the changing room. And the kid that I was working with, he felt comfortable around me because I had done a bunch of rehearsals. I had told him what kind of microaggressions I had faced as a kid when I was like overweight, and when I had expressed my experiences to him, that's when he started to open up to me and made the character his own. So when we were shooting those vulnerable scenes, he wanted me literally next to the camera in the changing room. So literally my DP, me and the kid, we all were squeezed in one changing room trying to get the shots. And it was crazy, but it was very liberating. And like Lauren said, after a point, I stopped looking at the monitor. I was literally looking at the kid. And if he felt comfortable, if he felt confident that he has given a good take, I would trust his instinct. I wouldn't push him to give me another one. I would trust more, like I would trust his instinct more. And in a way, we got that entire scene, which was the climax of the film. We got it done in like under 2 hours because we were prepped and he was really ready to give his everything. So that was a really wonderful experience.
It's already bold doing a climax first.
Yep.
You gotta do it. For our film, we only had 2 days as well, which was about a total of 7 hours each day. And we had, I think, 13 pages, and half of it was a fight sequence, a mass battle fight sequence. So, yeah, it's scheduling and, trying to figure it all out is insane. Cynthia,
Yeah.
you had a lot of kids with your film. And you said, are they different ages? Like, how do you guys deal with having a set teacher? How do you, make sure everybody's getting their hours in?
Um, Actually, that's a great question. We didn't have to deal with that. We shoot usually in August, and although professionally it doesn't matter what time of year you're shooting, we did not have school constraints. We were under the SAG ultra low budget contract, but school was not the issue. But everybody's brought up great points about keeping the focus, not having them sit around too long. Of course, most of us are dealing with really tight schedules. So there isn't a lot of sitting around. If we had a, if I were making $100 million budget movie, lighting setups might take 2 hours. We were like, we got to get it. I think keeping, everybody's been saying, keep their notes short and kind of concise to the kids. I know from working as a teenager that when I was in acting class and they were giving me all those background of like, oh, your character's history and your relationship with your mother and your blah, 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 I found that completely overwhelming. I didn't know how to approach a scene. It was too much information. I thought I was supposed to play all of that at once. And then I got a coach who used to say, just keep it, there's an intention in the moment. What are you trying to do? Just in that moment, what are you trying to do? And the light bulb went off for me. And so that's really the way I try to direct my actors. What do you want in the scene? What do you want in the moment? To keep it simple and so they just have a very linear focus.
Yeah. Well, on the note, just so we kind of wrap up teachers and set teachers and stuff, one thing I want to give a note for all the directors watching is I always say immediately go to set teacher. There's no getting a snack first. There's none of that. It's like, go check in with set teacher because every single second they're with set teacher checks off the time they have to rest. So it's immediately go to set teacher. And then once they're with set teacher, they can go get snacks. They can go do whatever that they want to go. They can say hi to mom, whatever they want. But that's when now set teacher's in charge of them and their hours are the time they have to be clocked in are ticking away. That's a really important thing to consider when you're working with kids. Um, is anybody before we go to any questions that anybody might have in the audience about working with kids, the audience especially, I love you guys are thinking about what, do you have something coming up that you have questions about? Have you heard things that you want to know if it's true or not? Any questions you might have, I'd love to start getting you guys in to ask those, but I would love to hear from our panelists just sort of anything that's comes to mind that you haven't talked about yet about working with kids, about the last film you did that is going to be in Dances with Films, if there's any fun stories about working with the kids that comes up.
I, so the child actor from this film, his name is Connor Price, and he grew up to be. This film was shot a little while ago. He's now this like huge rap star. um, and but but I would what I would like to add is in the auditioning, looking for range is huge. I don't know if this is preaching to the choir if everyone already knows this, but casting, somebody could come in with a prepared performance, but when it comes to film, and I'm not claiming that I would be terrible at this. Like I can't do this, but what the direction I might give is I want you to pretend, and it's called an as if. I want you to pretend as if I'm the president of the United States and see how does that change the scene. If you're reading against them and they're like, like, oh my God, like if they start giving little moments and flourishes in between, then they've taken the direction. And if you say, I want you to pretend like the person reading is kind of the nerdy kid at school and you don't want anyone to see you with them, how do they interpret the scene with that direction? And looking for two opposing kind of ranges and see what they do with it. And if they're able to do that, and the reality is, that's going to be a little more helpful with kids who are older, 10 and up. If you're looking at younger kids, some of these kids, like Connor, was a star already at 5 and 6, they're going to be able to do it, or they've taken lessons, or they just get it, like they just have that gift. Um, but
I
that
think it's
would
a
be
really
the
good
coolest
point
thing. Yeah.
because the audition process really is so much more. It's important anyway, but with kids, it's so much more important. Like, are they getting flustered when you give direction? There was kids we loved, like we just loved their look and they were adorable and we were just eating them up, but they couldn't cry. And there was one role that like we need you to cry on command, and if you can't get there, even though we were giving them the space or giving direction, we're doing breathing exercises, you've got to push your kid almost as much as you would if you were on set to see what they can do. I agree because some kids are really good in the room. They're really good at like coming in with the confidence and like they've got all of that, but they can't take direction, or maybe they don't want to take direction. Although I've yet to meet a kid who doesn't want direction. They love to play. Uh, any fun stories for you, Ruchir, from your last movie, the Dances with Films movie that you're in that's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the point what you said about kids, my I had a different problem with my kid because he had a theater background and he was coming with that theater flamboyance, like you project your expressions. And I had to, during the rehearsals, I had to ask him to not project and not act as if he's like making sure that everyone gets the emotion. I wanted him to downplay and like underplay a little. And those initial rehearsals were very necessary, I feel, for him to get the essence of what kind of acting I'm looking at for this film. And
I
but
think
the
it's
other,
because kids watch Disney. Like they
yeah,
think, they think that's what acting is. And you're like, no, we're making a film, yo. Like,
yeah,
bring it down.
yeah,
No, that's actually, I was going to bring that up, but that's a great, great point. A lot of the kids all of the kids that are in our films come from a part of the country where theater is all if they have experience, it's doing musical theater, not even straight theater.
No,
And
it's
she's
big.
saying everything, well, yeah, and the style of acting is indicating, let me show you how happy I am. Let me show you how upset I am. And and I try to get the kids that I know I'm going to be working with into acting class to learn film style acting prior to the shoot. It is really, really hard, not only for the kids, but for the adults to feel like they're enough just being still and listening. I'll coach them to do that. And then afterwards, they're like, but I didn't do anything. They're like, that's not it, right? And I'm like, no, that's it. It's very, very hard to teach them that it's enough to just be present, emotionally present, and listen. It's definitely a challenge.
Yep, yep, I love it. Um, any other final stories from anybody from the last set? I'm trying to push your movies here. I want people to get excited to come see your
Yeah,
movies.
I have a story from a different film shoot, but it was it was sort of it gets into involving parents. Is
Oh,
that
we haven't even
connection?
talked about the parents. What a good point. Please continue.
Okay, so she was 15. So the girl from this film at Dances with Films, I worked with her again on another film, um, that did fairly well, but it was also a while ago. And I needed her to be she's walking with her friend, and the camera's on her back, and it's like, well, I need to record a story, but I need it to be genuine. I need it to be really engaging. And in our sort of prep and just hanging out and talking about it, she had told a story or something that was really funny, and I needed her mom to I needed to try and get her to tell the story, actually tell it to her friend and record it. Now, that might be an issue, but so what I did was I asked her mom, I said, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking. Are you comfortable asking her to tell this story to Brooke, the other actress, and we'll record it?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." And so by getting the parents involved, one, they appreciate it, and two, you have to really be careful about like one, like if you're going to do playful things, which can happen on film sets, you find creative ways of bringing out a performance that you want. But with kids, you really have to be thoughtful as to how their parents might react to something like that, because you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with people that are not as mature or developed as you right now. So you gotta involve the parent to let and see like what are they comfortable with, and asking more than you might think is normal is probably a good thing. Is just
I'm
always
gonna
erring
do
on the
the
side of
flip
caution. Yeah.
side of that, and I'm gonna say keep the parents away out of it as much as you can. Now, I on this last film, we were very grateful. We had the most lovely parents we've ever had on any film in my entire existence. But I've had parents who literally wouldn't let their child out of the car because their hair would get messed up before we filmed. Parents can be the worst. They can be if they're way too involved. And I'm just gonna say this: when you're auditioning your kids, you need to be auditioning the parents. You need to try to figure out if you got somebody in the lobby, ask the person in the lobby who's doing checklist, how was the parents? Like you need to find out. Are the parents emailing you 6,000 times with questions before you've even cast it? Like you need to think about the parent before you cast that child, especially if it's a long-term gig and a leading role. You do not want a pain in the ass on your set. You want people who are like with Lawrence talking about, you want a collaborator. You want a parent who wants to be a collaborator. but also knows their place is off to the side. Like
Yeah.
it's not on set, it's not giving direction. Cynthia, I gotta imagine you've worked with so many kids that you've had to have parent nightmare stories.
Um, Most of the kids that I work with end up, they're my students. We have a performing arts school and they enroll. And I gotta say, I've been very, very lucky that the parents, there's already, you know what, I think part of what it is, there's already a trust established.
Yeah, you have an
We
extra.
already have a rapport, we already have a relationship, and they know they can trust me with their kids. Yeah, I've definitely been, I've been the kid in the waiting room, go ready to go in on the auditions. And I started when I was 14, and so I was a teenager, but I was literally in the waiting rooms with the parents who would like have the brush out with the little kid, and they're like, you know, like brushing their hair and telling them not to sit down and don't wrinkle your dress and don't do that.
Oh, yeah,
Don't
that's
eat the snack
horrible.
and you just messed up your hair. And I used to just sit there and be like, oh my, like, ugh, just make my skin crawl because the parents were so on top of the kids and messing with them. I personally have not had that on my sets, but I do know that it exists for sure.
Yeah. When you get a great parent, when you get great parents, you've got real collaborators. One of our parents ended up stepping up and doing costumes for this. One of our parents was taking a lot of photos on set, and has been the biggest cheerleader for getting the word out. Like you really want to have great parents on set.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, ours volunteer for those kind of positions there,
I,
and we're grateful, and they know it.
I
that's
actually did the final callback at one of the actors' houses so that the parents would come and I would get a much more casual read of the parents. So I actually didn't, the roles weren't finalized until it was a rehearsal, but it wasn't like it hadn't been off. It was basically a final callback, but it was outside of a room. It was at one of their houses if they were willing to host, or now that I'm older,
yeah.
I could host it, but but yeah, that was, yeah, exactly. I didn't mention it. You are auditioning the parents, but try not to call it auditioning, I guess.
We really are out of time. I would love to use some time for Q&A if anybody has any questions who's been listening in. Again, you can raise your hand. We'd love to get you on camera, or you can put it in the chat. This is all about you. We do this so that our filmmaking community can get those questions answered. Oscar, I see you're on. I don't know if you're on camera. Oscar does major TV. I'd be curious if if he's worked with kids in TV yet. He does a lot of procedurals. Um,
Oh, hey Jen. Yeah. Oh, my camera doesn't seem to be working. Huh.
it's okay. We'll still adhere if
My bad.
you've worked with kids on your big TV sets yet.
I have actually. One of the last episodes I did. I mean, I have to be honest. I had a very good experience. That was kind of my thought going into it. Just like someone said, keep it as simple as possible. I had an Instagram celebrity kid that came on to set, and
Oh
so I was a
boy.
little nervous because
Yeah.
he wasn't a trained actor. But he had an amazing personality, and his personality shined through. The only thing I would say is, he got really nervous because this was his first time on a big set as well. So I just would always, take time. I know, that's the least thing we have on set is time, but I would always take time to give him a break, let him kind of calm down and move forward. But I haven't had a ton of experience, but I could just say, the one experience I had, I got very lucky where he was a very respectful, talented kid. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I will say that I don't know if I've ever met anybody who has a bad story about working with kids. I
Yeah.
mean, we just love it. I have plenty of bad stories about working with adults. That's a whole nother podcast we can do.
There we go.
There's
But
Oscar.
There we go.
so honestly, sometimes the grown-up actors, they just want to be kids as well. Like I've worked with actors who just start getting into rap and they're in a character, and if you were to look from the third person, you'd be like, this is absurd. But you gotta join them, right? That's your job when you're directing. You gotta join them and make them feel comfortable. So yeah, I don't know. I find grown-ups can acting is playing. So
No, of course. And that's why casting is always important because you want to cast those kind of actors. But sometimes when you're in the world, and I'm sure Oscar, you probably had some of these, and I don't want to get out of the kids story too much, but like when you're talking about adult actors, when you're a lot of times you're handed actors that you didn't get a chance to cast.
Right.
Often the worst ones are either famous because they're on, they're Instagram famous or they think they're famous. But adults can be the hardest because they have a lot more neuroses about them. There's a lot more baggage that comes with them. So even though they want to play and they want direction and they want to have fun, they feel stupid or they feel like you're judging them because you're giving them a note. You don't have that with kids, which is the best part. But I also think as a director, one of the most fun things is that like it's kind of what Lauren's just saying, like we become big kids. So if I need you to do some kind of stupid dance, I've done things where like I've been like, let's all scream, like we just want to get our energy out. Let's get, whatever we need to do. You don't really do that on adult sets. We're kind of a little more serious, even though I'm never that serious unless, sets running behind or someone's pissing me off. But
Oh, one thing I did do, Jen, that did help me in that situation too, like I said, because he wasn't a trained actor, is I talked to the actor that was playing opposite of him. And I said, well, just in case, he's not delivering exactly what we need, let's do some rolling retakes. So that was one thing I prepared the other actor for. And so, if there was a situation where I wanted him to read another line again, I would, tell the actor, oh, that was, great. Now let's try it again this way, give him that line again. And so we just kind of got into a rhythm. And then once we got that line, we would move on to the next one. I don't know if that is, you know, I don't want to say kosher. I know that's not everyone's method, but in that situation, it did help me though.
I think there's often with kids, especially if they have one line, we just do it. We just do the series of it. And
Yeah.
sometimes with really little kids, you have to I would never give an adult a line reading, but with little kids, sometimes you have to, like
Mhm.
really little kids. Um, so I think there's no method that's wrong other than if you're making the kid feel bad or uncomfortable, if you're being I've heard stories about one of the biggest directors in Hollywood who is a complete asshole to kids. And it literally pisses me off when I hear this because I'm like, there is no reason to ever be an asshole to anybody, but especially to kids because they're so impressionable. And this is shapes who they are. These moments we're giving them, we're part of what's shaping their life as an adult to show them how adults should be. Um, so I don't think there's any method that's wrong other than being an asshole. Does anybody else in the audience have any questions before we wrap up here? Uh, my glasses are not on. Yeah, go ahead and speak up. Is it
Hi,
Rashad?
it's Rashana. Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Hi. This is great. Thank you. I'm embarking on a short film with kids, with singing and dancing. I don't know why. Um,
Because it's gonna be so much fun.
oh my God, I think it is. The more I listen, I don't know after today, but no. I'm gonna talk to a casting director because we can't afford one. And I'm going to work with what I can control, which is I have some amazing choreographers, and they work with children. So we're going to work with them to construct the dance. My question is around casting, and I'm going to consult with someone, but I wanted to know if anybody had any thoughts about working with children who were, multi-hyphenated artists and singers and dancers as well, and like any advice on like what battles to pick. I mean, we're working with limited resources, so I'm going to go with what comes to me, but I just wondered if anybody had any thoughts about how to kind of like go through that on a shoestring budget.
Meaning, like, how do you pick the best actor? Like, I'm assuming you're not talking about name talent, right? You're just talking about
Absolutely. Well, I don't
casting
know.
the right
Yeah.
person. Yeah. So
I'm
I've
gonna be
directed a lot of musicals.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest advice points I would say is that like it's not just about their voice.
Mhm.
Um, it has to be about can they act while they're singing? Can they take direction when they're singing? Like if they're singing and you're like, okay, you're out of breath here in this moment, or you're running, but you can't really run right now because you're going to be in a booth, like can they take that kind of direction? Because some people will sound amazing, but they can't act to save their lives. I'll take the good actor, mediocre singer over the greatest singer, terrible actor any day. I think I said that right. Um, I don't know if anybody else in the panel has done musicals and stuff or done multiple.
One of my first big jobs when I was a teenager was on the series Fame. So singing, acting, dancing, that's what I did for 3 years. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
But is it
And
a lot?
it's I don't know, you're casting, I think it's unrealistic. That's what my school is. We're a performing arts school. We train singers, actors, dancers. It's unrealistic to expect a child to be strong at all three disciplines. So when you're casting, prioritize what that role needs. The strong, if you need a strong actor in it and you can kind of fudge the choreo and you can play with all the tools in the studio with their singing to make them sound better than they actually do, then go with the strong actor. And of course, if you need a really strong dancer, and because there's no way to get around somebody who can't sing and somebody who can't dance. You can't make them look or sound like they do. So I think you just have to target in your casting the strength and expect them to be good at one, okay at a second, and maybe pretty inept at the third.
And if they're really good at all three, they probably kind of have an attitude and are a dick.
Show biscuits. Thank you.
Show
That was
biscuits.
super helpful. Thank you.
No.
Thank
I mean, congrats. That's going to be so much. Musicals are my favorite thing to direct. You're going to have a blast. I think that the biggest thing is like, obviously, you're going to be in the booth before you go to set, or you're recording live on set.
So I'm actually working out the music as we speak. We're gonna probably go into rehearsals in late July, August. So the way that I was approaching it is whichever comes first. I'd rather have the dance track, which I need to get mixed. That's like kind of the important thing because I can always take them. We can go to a studio afterwards to make it better. I think I'd be piecing it together for the most part. I mean, studios, everyone has them nowadays, but
Well, so
um,
my thing is like I'm saying like you need to have it prep. You need to know what like so if you're going to be recording in a booth before you go to set to film it, you as a director need to know exactly what's going to be happening on set, how
yeah,
they're dancing, how are they running, how are they emotionally, because I love recording live. Like we almost every movie I can, like my last feature, we did all the music, all the piano playing, all the singing, everything was recorded live on set because I think you cannot beat the real or raw emotion that's happening there then. It's probably harder with kids, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't done a musical with kids yet. Which is shocking to say. Uh, so my thing is like you as a director need to be prepped. If you're gonna go to the booth, what exactly is going to be happening on set? Because otherwise, later when you're watching it, you're gonna be really disappointed that the vocals aren't matching that performance on screen. Also, when they're performing for camera, I mean, I don't know if you, I mean, you maybe you've done this before and I'm telling you things you know, but like when you're performing for camera, they need to still really sing, even if you're not recording, because lip singing without that throat, all that vocal stuff, we can tell it looks fake. So, um, I would still record the live, even if it's not. A lot of people don't do it because like, I don't want to deal with sound. I still do it. I think it's great to have anyway.
coming from a primarily film background, I didn't think about doing that at all. I was gonna have a track, but
I mean, no, you
I'll
would still do the playback, but still
yeah,
let them sing it. Like you should still hear them.
okay,
Um, because even though they're singing to their own voice,
okay.
for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. Good luck though. Please email us when that's out. I want to see it.
I will. Thank you.
All right, we are pretty much out of time unless anybody in the audience has a burning question. It's very quiet. I don't see any hands raising. So with that, I'm just going to remind everybody. Thank you, Oscar, for letting me pull you into this conversation. um, I want to remind everybody that everybody's here's films are on June 22nd. I'm the Outcast. Ruchir is Changing Room. Lawrence is the Rocket Man, and that's all. And we're in the same block, June 22nd, 2:45 p.m. And then Cynthia is in the Kids Pro block at 4:15 p.m. with, remind us name of your film, Cynthia?
Straight-laced.
Straight Lace. Everybody here is got some pretty dramatic stuff they're going to be showing, but ours is super fun and fun and fun, just fun. It may not be perfect. Never, nothing I've ever made has ever been perfect. I've never been like, yes, come see it, but I think you'll still have fun. We hope
Oh,
to see
you
you
broke up a little
there.
bit. What day, Jen?
Do what, Oscar?
What day is it?
June 22nd. It's a Sunday.
And where is this? I'm sorry.
It's Dances with Films, so it's at the Man's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. And anybody who's coming to see my film, please email me because we're doing a little after party right after. And I'm kind of have appetizers and everything. It's gonna be Dave and Buster's because it's kids and it's it's across the way and it's fun. But so let me know you're coming so I can get you the details. And thank you to my panelists who joined us and talked about your films. Good luck at the festival.